The slap echoed louder than the diner's clinking plates. A disabled girl froze in her wheelchair, eyes wide, as laughter filled the room and no one moved. What the bullies didn't know was this. The next hour would bring footsteps that changed everything forever for everyone inside that small diner. Every afternoon at 3, the diner followed the same gentle rhythm. Coffee refills, the low hum of conversation, sunlight spilling through wide windows onto red vinyl booths. That was when Emily usually arrived, pushed carefully through the door by her mother before settling into her favorite spot near the window. The staff knew her order by heart: hot chocolate, extra whipped cream, and a grilled cheese cut into neat triangles. Emily didn't talk much, but she smiled easily. Her hands shook when she reached for her cup, and her wheelchair squeaked softly when she shifted her weight. Still, the diner was her safe place. Here, people nodded politely. Here, no one stared too long. That afternoon, her mother stepped outside to take a phone call, leaving Emily alone for just a few minutes. That was when the laughter began. A group of teenage boys slid into the booth behind her, their voices loud, careless, sharp. They mocked the way she held her cup. They whispered cruel jokes they wanted her to hear. Emily tried to ignore them, staring at the window, counting passing cars. Her fingers tightened around her napkin. She hoped someone would say something. Anyone. But plates kept clattering. Coffee kept pouring. And the boys, encouraged by silence, leaned closer, testing how far cruelty could go when no one pushed back. One of the boys stood up, blocking the light from the window. He smirked, enjoying the attention of his friends. Another leaned over Emily's shoulder, snapping his fingers inches from her face as if testing whether she would react. Her eyes darted around the diner, searching for her mother, for a server, for anyone willing to meet her gaze. "Hey," one of them said loudly, "say something." Emily's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her breathing grew shallow. That was when the boy closest to her lost his patience. With a sharp laugh, he reached out and slapped her across the cheek. The sound cracked through the diner like a dropped plate. Emily froze. Her head turned slightly from the impact, eyes wide, stunned, glassy. For a heartbeat, the entire room went silent. Forks hovered midair. A waitress stopped walking. Someone gasped, but no one moved. The boys burst into laughter, feeding off the shock. One of them mimicked the slap in the air, as if replaying a joke. Another pulled out his phone, pretending to record. Emily's hands trembled violently now. A tear slipped down her cheek, tracing the red mark left behind. She didn't scream. She didn't cry out. She just shrank inward, wishing she could disappear. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the boys stood up, still laughing, tossing a few coins on the table as if they had paid for entertainment. They swaggered out of the diner, leaving behind a room full of people staring at the floor, and a girl sitting alone, hurt, humiliated, and forgotten. None of them noticed the distant growl of engines approaching outside. Nearly an hour passed, but the weight of what happened never left the diner. Emily's mother returned from the restroom to find her daughter quiet, withdrawn, her eyes fixed on nothing. She noticed the faint red mark on Emily's cheek a second too late. Emily tried to smile. It broke her mother's heart. Outside, the afternoon sun dipped lower. Then it happened. A deep rumble rolled through the glass windows. Low, powerful, unmistakable. Engines. Not one. Many. The sound grew louder, vibrating the silverware, turning heads one by one. The diner door swung open. Men walked in wearing leather vests and heavy boots. Broad shoulders. Tattooed arms. Faces carved by years of wind and road. A dozen bikers filled the doorway, their presence instantly commanding the room. Conversations died. Even the cook peeked out from the kitchen. At the front was a tall man with a thick beard and calm, steady eyes. He scanned the diner slowly, not aggressive, observant. Behind him, another biker locked eyes with Emily's mother. She stiffened. The bearded man stepped forward, his boots heavy against the tile. "We're just here to eat," he said calmly, his voice deep but controlled. No one breathed. They took seats along the counter and nearby booths, leather creaking, chains clinking softly. Yet their eyes kept drifting, not toward the menu, but toward Emily. One biker frowned when he noticed her trembling hands. Another followed his gaze and saw the fading mark on her cheek. A silent understanding passed between them. The engines outside finally went quiet. But inside the diner, something far more powerful had just arrived. The bikers didn't rush. They didn't shout. That made it worse for the men who had caused the trouble. The bearded biker stood and walked to the counter, placing his hands flat on the surface. "Ma'am," he said gently to Emily's mother. "Is your daughter okay?" Emily's mother hesitated, then shook her head. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Some boys earlier, they hurt her." Silence fell like a dropped plate. One biker slowly turned on his stool. Another stood. Chairs scraped the floor, not threatening, just deliberate. The waitress swallowed hard, unsure whether to call the police or pray. "Which ones?" the bearded man asked. "Calm. Controlled." The manager pointed toward the door, his face pale. "They left about an hour ago." The bikers nodded, absorbing the answer. No chase. No fists clenched. Instead, one of them reached into his vest and pulled out a small card, setting it on the counter. A veteran's patch peeked from beneath his leather. "We don't hit kids," he said quietly. "And we don't let people who do walk away unchanged." Another biker slipped some cash onto the table, far more than the cost of a meal. "For the girl," he said, "and for her trouble." Then the bearded man crouched down, bringing himself to Emily's eye level. His voice softened. "You didn't do anything wrong," he told her. "Nothing." Emily looked at him, really looked, past the tattoos, past the size, and nodded. For the first time that day, her shoulders relaxed. The bikers finished their meals quickly. As they stood to leave, one thing was clear. No punches had been thrown, but a message had been delivered, loud enough to last a lifetime. After the engines faded and the diner door swung shut, the room felt different, lighter, yet heavy with understanding. People slowly returned to their meals, but no one spoke above a whisper. The moment had passed, but its weight stayed behind. Emily's mother wiped her eyes, then pulled her daughter close. Emily leaned into her, small fingers gripping fabric like an anchor. The sting on her cheek would fade. What stayed was something else, proof that strangers could choose kindness, that cruelty didn't always win. The waitress brought over a slice of pie, setting it gently in front of Emily. "On the house," she said, forcing a smile. Emily hesitated, then took a bite. A tiny one, the first sign that the world hadn't completely broken. Outside, across town, the bullies laughed their way into another afternoon, unaware that consequences don't always arrive with sirens or fists. Sometimes they arrive as stories, as warnings, as reputations that follow you longer than fear ever did. Weeks later, someone left flowers at the diner counter. No note, just a small card tucked underneath that read, "For Emily. Stay brave." The town remembered that day, not for the slap, but for what came after, for restraint instead of rage, for strength that didn't need to prove itself. And Emily remembered too, not the pain, but the moment when the room stood still and she learned she wasn't alone.